Hello everyone, I'm Naimul, a PhD candidate from University of Maryland. I'm glad to present our work on towards designing a question answering chatbot for online news, understanding questions and perspectives. Newsreaders often use various means such as news comment sections, email, and social media direct messages to engage with journalists. On the other hand, both journalists and newsrooms have an interest in engaging with the readers to learn what aspects of their news raise curiosity and questions in readers' mind and to understand if readers are questioning newsrooms' journalistic integrity. Thus, there is a clear interest from both readers and newsrooms' perspectives to engage with each other in a dialogue fashion. However, this dialogue is difficult to facilitate due to reasons such as the abundance of questions, lack of time, and the absence of direct incentives from the journalist perspectives. One way to facilitate the dialogue is using a chatbot as a mediator between readers and journalists. Several news organizations, such as BBC, have already started experimenting with chatbots where users can get answers to their questions and get recommendation for news. And with the rise of large language models, like any other industry, news media industry is also investigating how LLMs can be integrated with the chatbots. So the goal of this work is to understand what roles journalists and readers deem fit for a chatbot in the newsroom. More specifically, we focus on open-ended question answering, one of the primary modes of interaction in chatbots, and try to understand, are journalists comfortable with the chatbot answering readers' questions about their written news article? What type of questions do readers expect the chatbot to answer? And what types of questions do readers expect the authors to answer? To start, we conducted semi-structured interviews with 6 professional journalists. Our goal was to understand how journalists interact with readers, answer questions, their challenges, and the opportunity for a chatbot in the process. All participants were enthusiastic about using a question answering chatbot as a mediator between themselves and the readers. They want the chatbot to answer factual and redundant questions from readers while want to engage with readers directly for questions seeking subjective interpretation. For example, participant 3 or P3 said, I wouldn't mind AI answering some factual questions from readers. So I sometimes get redundant questions from readers. AI could be helpful there. However, I do not think I will use it if the reader is seeking a deep conversation or asking critical questions. We subsequently conducted a between subject experiment on Amazon Mechanical Turk with 124 participants for understanding to what extent readers' perspectives and questioning patterns match with how journalists see the functionalities of a Q chatbot. More specifically, since journalists want to use the chatbot as a mediator, we wanted to see how readers want to route questions between authors and chatbot. We asked the following research questions. What are the types of questions readers would ask about the news? How do the questions differ when readers ask the question to a chatbot in comparison to the actual authors? The study had 2 conditions. In one condition, participants were prompted that they would ask the questions to the authors of the news articles, whereas in the other condition, they would ask the questions to a chatbot. Neither condition provided any answer or response to the participants. Participants used the interface on the screen for asking the questions. They read 3 articles one by one and then asked 2 questions per article. In total, we collected 744 questions, 322 for author's condition and the other 322 for the chatbot condition. We used a grounded theory approach to code the questions. For example, the question, what are the Northern Triangle countries and what makes them so important can be coded as seeking both details and explanation. This is another question. How would you compare the level of energy and excitement for Trump at this event to that of his announcement for his presidential bid for 2016? This question is seeking details and personal opinion about an event. Once we had the codes, we can compare the two conditions. We found that readers' questioning patterns significantly differ depending on the receiver, authors versus chatbot. Participants asked questions seeking facts more frequently to the chatbot than to the authors. In contrast, they asked questions seeking explanation and opinion with multiple facets more frequently to the authors than to the chatbot. We also coded the questions based on the Bloom's taxonomy, where a higher value indicates a higher complexity. Overall, questions asked to the authors were more complex than the chatbot. We computed several automated measures too. For example, questions asked to the authors were longer in length than the chatbot. Similarly, questions asked to the authors also had a slightly higher readability score than to the chatbot. Finally, we also coded the questions based on whether a question is questioning the journalistic integrity of the newsroom. For example, the following question: are you sure that low income people were at higher risk of depression? They might have already had depression before that. How was it tested to get the result? This question was questioning the journalistic integrity of the authors, even though it was asked to the chatbot. Finally, we coded the questions based on we constructed a structural equation model to capture the effect of perceived quality of the news articles and participants' news preference. For perceived quality, participants rated each article on a 5-point scale across 3 dimensions: readability, credibility, and journalistic expertise. While interacting with the authors, readers were more critical of authors when perceived quality was low, seeking more evidence, explanation, and questioning journalistic integrity. Interestingly, when interacting with the chatbot, readers were less critical, even if the perceived quality was low. Thus, it implies that readers may not engage with the chatbot even if they think the quality of the article is poor, and many critical questions can be raised. We did not observe any significant impact of readers' choice of news outlets in the questions. Overall, the findings from the two studies suggest that there is a high level agreement between journalists and readers about the role of a chatbot in newsroom. Both parties predominantly wanted the chatbot to answer factual questions, while they wanted to engage with each other directly for subjective interpretation. However, our findings also suggest readers do not see the role of a chatbot to be a zero-sum situation, that all factual questions should be answered by a chatbot, while journalists should focus on answering questions requiring subjective interpretation only. A considerable amount of readers wanted the chatbot to answer factual as well as subjective questions. Given this somewhat conflicting alignment between readers and journalists, it is clear that researchers and news organizations need a systematic approach to calibrate and communicate the needs and expectations of the two stakeholders. We propose a conceptual framework with 5 facets to facilitate this. The facets include authors, readers, news outlets, technology, and AI regulatory policies. Only by considering these facets and reiterating requirements and needs between the facets, we'll be able to design chatbots that really meets the needs of the stakeholders. With that, I want to thank everyone and invite you all to our talk at CHI. Thank you.